me tell you a story. This is probably going to be in a couple parts because my brain is fried and I'm gonna need to take breaks. So let's start last school year. Sometime in June, I was working from home and CPS showed up at my door. Wow, okay. So this woman comes into my house and says that there was a report that I hit my child and she was here to do the investigation. And she interviewed Lucas and she interviewed me, and my boyfriend Chris was here, and part of the story, not that he hit him, I hit him, but basically we were all present to be interviewed as part of the investigation for this accusation. And she said, said that Lucas said that I slapped him. And I said, I did slap him. Yes, I did slap him. I've never hit either of my children to hurt them, but Lucas was on the verge of a meltdown, and that is not in anyone's best interest. Lucas is much, much better off if he can stay in the moment and get through it. So, never hit to hurt, but I will hit to stop. And not hard. I don't want to hurt him. That's my baby. So I got through my interview, and she kept, doing weird things like trying to reword my answers so they sounded worse and things like that. And Chris was recording the interaction, audio recording, the entire thing, which is what makes the next part of this story very strange and horrifying in a couple different ways. It was scary to watch, and especially since she was being recorded. But when it came time to ask Chris questions, she started to say things like she was beginning to feel very uncomfortable, and we were being very aggressive, and she didn't feel comfortable continuing, and she needed to leave. And she was standing in front of the open door. The screen door was shut, but the front door was open, so she was the closest person to the door. And we were like, no, I mean, we're in the middle of this. Why would you leave? And what do you mean you're feeling threatened? Like, nothing changed at all. Absolutely nothing is happening right now. And she needed to call her supervisor. So she called her supervisor and started talking about how she didn't feel safe. And we were being very aggressive, and she needed to leave the interview. And so she went out of the house, and we followed her, sort of, like we were standing in the doorway trying to figure out what is happening and why she's doing this. And she's standing like 8 feet away on my sidewalk on the phone with her supervisor saying that we are in her face and preventing her from leaving. Which is clearly not happening. And I've never seen anything like that in my life, and it was extremely scary. And embarrassing as a Caucasian female. And just so harmful. Like, I don't know why, and I don't think I would ever understand why. So I asked to talk to the supervisor, and I got close enough so that she could hear me saying that no one is stopping you from leaving, and you can definitely get off of my property because no one wants you here in the first place. And she walked all the way. She wouldn't get in her vehicle until we went back into the house. And I had asked for the supervisor to call me. And she did, and we spoke, and I said, I have this audio recording of what actually transpired, and I can send it to you, along with a formal complaint, because what is that? That is such dangerous behavior. How do you send someone that can do something like that into someone's house to accuse them of harming their child? I don't understand how that even happens. And so, because we hadn't finished the interview, they had to come back. So they came back with a different worker and the supervisor, who said, you can hit your child. You can't harm them. You can't beat them. You can't injure them and leave marks and hit them for no reason, but physical discipline is okay. And again, not my go-to, but trying to raise men is tricky. And sometimes, especially when they get older, and that's the CPS worker said, you don't still want to be dealing with this behavior when he's 16 and can throw you. So that happened. That was pretty terrible. And no contact from the school, who are the ones that called, which I understand, mandated reporting and such, and all of the things, but the mandate is for when you believe a child is being abused, and then there are criteria involved. And as the supervisor at CPS said, what I did didn't qualify. And I began to notice just there hadn't really been a lot of contact with the school. And my son is special needs. He's autistic, and he's in 7th grade now. So he's been in the school district his entire school career, and so they know me pretty well. We have lots of meetings, and they've told me how good of a mother I am, and how well I know my child, and how good I am at dealing with him and understanding what he needs. And that all changed, and I couldn't figure out exactly why that changed. But the year before, I had said that I was going to be more hands-off because he's in middle school now, and he needs to learn independence, and so they should reach out if I need to know anything. But I'm not going to follow up on everything and be up Lucas's behind, constantly making sure he is doing all the things Lucas should do, because if I do that, Lucas will never, ever, ever learn what Lucas should do. And Lucas had a one-on-one teaching assistant up until last year, and the school felt the same way. So that's why this year he has, a group teaching assistant. So there's a few students, not just him. He doesn't have someone just to him, to pack his things for him and make sure that, he can transition properly. And he does need the accommodations, and it is helpful to him, but it does need to decrease as time goes on and he becomes more capable of dealing with things, because that's what we're trying to teach him, is how to act in the world and how to be a successful, functioning member of society. And they seem to be in complete agreement with that last year. So, I assumed that was part of the reason for the lack of communication. Also, Lucas's behavior was improving, as far as I could tell. We discontinued all electronics, and we're doing a lot of things to try and help him grow. And it was working. It's definitely working. He's growing. Then there was summer, thankfully. No school. Yay. And we got through that just fine. Still stressful because follow-up visits from CPS and such, because they definitely have to come back, and trying to deal with all of the other things in life. And then school starts again. And Lucas is having a really good year, and his behavior has improved. And they took electronics away at school as well. And I talked to the school about that. They reached out and we had that discussion. I said, yes, that's been working really well here, so that seems like a good thing to do. If you can do that functionally, definitely do it. And what else did we talk about? It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot of contact. And then the week before Christmas, I come home and there is a letter in my mailbox because CPS came again. And so I said, Lucas, did something happen? Because I have no idea what this is about. Because the first encounter was stressful enough in so many ways, because the aftermath and the stress that just puts on a household. Like, I understand the need, but the application could definitely be improved, because I don't see how, for any reason, CPS could visit a household and not throw it into chaos. But when you have the added whatever that was that woman did, and the fact that, all of a sudden the good relationship that I had garnered with the school, because Lucas isn't my first child. The older one went through too, and so they knew me before. So they've known me for a long, long time. My oldest child started kindergarten in 2006. And then all of a sudden, I'm just this bad mother in their opinion, and they're not talking to me anymore. What happened? So a week before Christmas, they called CPS again. And I asked Lucas what happened, and that's a whole nother story. And he said, basically, he was telling them about some children at school that are bullying him and saying horrible things to him, and have been for apparently the whole year. One child in particular. And he was talking about that with the social worker, and then she was asking about how things are at home, and he said, and I was trying to think of something to tell her. So there was a thing that happened a couple weeks before that where he wouldn't blow his nose, and we just had a really bad morning, and I think I pushed him or shoved him or grabbed him or something during, trying to get him out the door to the school bus. Those of you who have children, especially adolescents, know what I'm talking about, I think. And they just kept asking questions, and, but that's what he told them. And I was like, I don't understand why that would lead CPS here again. And I tried to get information, and, I talked to CPS, and they said your son made no disclosures or whatever. And I said, so does that mean that I don't have to talk to you any more than this phone conversation since you've already talked to Lucas at school? Cool. Because I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this again. There's no reason, especially after the first time, there's no reason I'm going to subject this household to you again. It's just not going to happen. And they were fine with that. So I went to the school and requested to speak with someone. deals with my son. Social worker, principal, I don't care, whatever. And I sat there and waited until someone had time for me. And I talked to one of the house principals, and I told her the story, both of them. And the thing is, the only thing that's changed in all of this, because during this I had also found out that the CPS worker, when she went and questioned my son, had specifically asked if Chris was black, which seems like a strange question to ask, especially when the complaint's against me. And then that led to that whole, all of a sudden, we're being aggressive and she can't talk to him and that whole thing. And I do have the audio recording, and I don't know what the legal ramifications are for posting it, but if you want to hear it, let me know. Because it's insane. It's insane. So I had explained that to the principal when I was talking about this most recent time. And so she, I said, they're pulling information out of my autistic 12-year-old who trusts them. And he's saying, I have to come up with something to tell them. And that's not okay. And she'd also told him that she would lose her job if she didn't call CPS, which I also don't think is okay. And I said, there's no one in this building or in this district that can tell me to my face that they think that I'm abusing my child, or that they think that I'm not a good mother, because you've all told me that I am, and I am. No one's perfect. But I love my children, and I am a good mother, regardless of what anyone thinks. You can ask them. You can ask my kids. So the principal's like, well, I wasn't here, and the social worker's not here today, so we're gonna need to gather some information. But none of this was, no one had any issues with me until Chris was in the picture, and I keep asking. I asked CPS multiple times for anything that they could give me, or in the school I'm asking you. What, I don't want to believe that this is all happening because I'm exposing Lucas to a black man. Like, this is not what's happening, right? And like, no one can give me anything that makes sense. No one can tell me why your behavior is changing all of a sudden. It's been decades, like over a decade, that I've been dealing with this school district, and all of a sudden, this is a completely different relationship, and my word means nothing, and I don't understand what's happening. It's like they think I've lost my mind, but I don't see that. I'm still here. I'm still me. So I have a meeting with all of the school peoples tomorrow morning. Which I am both dreading and looking forward to. follow up to the meeting with the house principal, she got her information, and she did call me back, which is good because that is a thing that does not happen very often. These people will come and just wreck your entire day and then act like it never happened. And then look at you like you're crazy when you follow up with them, like, hello, hi, remember that thing? Can you tell me what's going on? And they're like, no, not right now. But she says that what happened was Lucas, what she was told was that Lucas was in class complaining that his back hurt and was crying, and then said that I hit him with a spoon, which didn't happen. At least not then. I'm not going to say I never hit him with a spoon. I have never hit him with a spoon in a way that would hurt him, but it's one of those old school kind of like mental techniques, you know? You always hear about moms and the wooden spoons. Yep. But don't do that, because that is apparently not okay. Playful. Playful should be okay, but you never know, apparently. So be careful, or be prepared for months and months of turmoil. Oh, sorry, I'm starting to lose my train of thought and go off in all the directions. But this kind of has a lot of directions, and they all connect back to the same thing. Anywho, they basically said that what Lucas said wasn't accurate, and he went in and did a whole different thing and said this other stuff. So then I said, Lucas, what did, and he said, no, they're mixing it all up. He said, no. He said, that's a whole different story, but no. So they also played with the timeline because they went back to remember a thing that happened and decided that that had to be related to this other thing that they changed. And that was their justification for their mandated report, or what have you. So clearly I expected the school to speak and come up with a company line. What I didn't expect, and I should have, what I didn't expect was them to just be like, nope, bye, and act like my experience in this didn't matter. Lucas's experience in this didn't matter, and we weren't even worth communicating with anymore. So then I called the building principal, which was the most unpleasant experience I have had in a long time, because that man was so horribly condescending and cold and rude and unprofessional even. And at a couple different points in the conversation, I stopped him and said, I don't understand why you are talking to me like this. I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to get information from you about my child who goes to school in your building, and I'm trying to give you information about people that work in your building. Because I had also told the house principal about the bullying that my son continues to report. And, bullying's one of those trigger words, but that's how Lucas looks at it. That's how he looks at it. Because in this day and age, bullying is a big deal. And there are things that are, technically considered bullying that, in my day probably wouldn't have been. But maybe they should have been. I'm not going to speak on that. What I am going to speak on is the fact that my child thinks he's being bullied or harassed or put down or made to feel bad at school. And he's telling his teachers and his social worker, and there's no communication of that with me. But then they do these other things, and I don't want to say attack, but I'm going to say attack because it's an attack. They're attacking me. I don't know why they're attacking me. And I don't know why they're not defending my child. But yeah. So I was talking to the building principal about the bullying mostly. And his entire response is, well, that hasn't been reported to me, so I wouldn't know anything about it. Well, who did Lucas report it to? What did he say? Who did he report it to? And when did he report it? And I was just like, so are you telling me that my 12-year-old is the one that's responsible for documenting and properly reporting through your bureaucratic red tape someone who is harassing him? Like, that's what you're telling me? You're saying that the teachers he reported it to don't have any responsibility to do anything about it, and the social worker doesn't have any responsibility, and the house principal, who knows because I told her, doesn't have any responsibility. So who does? And as the building principal, the head administrator, wouldn't you still be responsible for the people over whom you're responsible? Like, I think that's how that works. That's how it works. So, but completely dismissive. And just kept repeating, like, handbook quotes at me. He laughed at me a few times. He repeatedly said, we can pick this up after the break. And mind you, I'm talking to him 3 days before Christmas. Because this is happening to me 3 days before Christmas. And happening to Lucas 3 days before Christmas. But he wants to pick it up after the break. And I really took that part personally, because I don't get a break from this. Is my life. Like, it's his job, and I get that. But this is also crazy. I don't even know how to tell his story functionally, because it's like there's so many different parts of it that are just equally crazy and equally disappointing and equally saddening and angering and all of the emotioning. So tomorrow I get to meet with all the principals and social workers and peoples to discuss this. And I will definitely give an update. It's just insane to me. And I guess, this is a good new year, new me, because after seeing this from this perspective, I don't understand so many things anymore. And I have a much, much harder time giving people the benefit of the doubt. Because there's no reason for any of these things to be happening. And yet here we are. And why? the only thing that's changed is the introduction of a black man. And I keep trying to find a way that this is not that. And no one can lead me there. I keep trying because I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it. But I do believe it now because I've seen it and I've felt it and it's been in my house. The hate and just complete bias.